back with the author of Separated, Jacob Soboroff. The last time you were here was in September of 2020, and we weren't even talking in person because I was in a storage room on the 8th floor because we were still in the grips of COVID isolation at the time.
I was in my laundry room at home.
Oh. It was very nice. It played well on camera.
Thank you.
And you were there for your book, now in paperback, called Separated. It's a New York Times bestseller about Trump's child separation policy at the southern border. Now the book is a documentary by the Academy Award-winning director Errol Morris.
Yes.
And what new light does Morris's documentary shed on this absolutely tragic story?
Errol Morris, there is no filmmaker like Errol Morris. He is one of the greatest filmmakers, not just one of the greatest living filmmakers, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And what he does is, I think look into the soul of people when he uses this famous device in Terratron. He's looking right into their eyes when he's interviewing them. And he talked to people that I never have and probably never could. There's a guy by the name of Jonathan White who was in the Office of Refugee Resettlement. You hear from these people for the first time, I think, that there was a lot of controversy over whether the cruelty was the point. You remember Adam Sturwer famously coined that phrase.
Well, just go back one step and just remind people what it was that was happening.
Don't take it from me, take it from the Republican-appointed judge who stopped the policy, who called it one of the most shameful chapters in the history of the country, a deliberate and systematic separation. And you were so amazing at the time speaking out against this, of 5,500 children from their parents for no other reason than to harm them, to hurt them, to scare other people from coming to the country. Physicians for Human Rights called it torture, and the American Academy of Pediatrics called it government-sanctioned child abuse. It never had happened before, and it hasn't happened since. And they knew exactly what they were doing. And so what Errol did was, I think, make it crystal clear, like it has never been done before, that the harm to children was the point. You hear it from people.
John Kelly says it when he's talking about this. He says that this is a deterrent, so that cruelty is actually the point.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and they can explain it away any which way they want, but the fact of the matter is, you look at the emails in the film, you hear from people like Jonathan White who will say directly, harm to children was the intention. And my fear is that perhaps that this could happen again with this talk of all this mass deportation.
Well, the film paints a picture of the chilling crime perpetuated by the Trump administration in the past, and it warns that it can happen again in the future. Well, I assume this was being made before the second Trump administration.
We had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's happening right now?
They're talking about mass deportation. I reported from the floor of the Republican convention. They literally held up signs saying mass deportation now. They have based their program off of Dwight D. Eisenhower's 1954 program with the name so racist, I'm not gonna say it here, I never say it, that deported not only 1 million Mexicans, but some Mexican Americans as well. I heard you talking about American citizens already getting caught up in the dragnet. When you talk about mass deportation, translation, mass deportation is family separation by another name. It's not ripping apart children away from their parents at the border, but it's immigration enforcement officials going into the interior and taking parents away from their children.
Children who go to school terrified that when they come home, their parents will be gone.
Go to school, go to church, and now there's directives that these agents can go inside these sensitive locations, new as of this administration, in order to conduct these immigration raids. And so we're talking about a family separation of another order of magnitude. 20 million people or so live in a home with an undocumented immigrant. Maybe there's 4 million children of undocumented parents that are U.S. citizens living in this country. And what they say is, you either get out of the country if you're a U.S. citizen kid and your parents deported, or we're going to have family separation all over again. They have not made that a secret.
ProPublica reported that the Biden administration did have some family separation. What do they mean by that?
Family separation has happened in the U.S. immigration enforcement system for a very long time. But when it happened before and when it's happened subsequent to the Trump administration policy, it's always been done to protect the interests of the child or for some type of national security interest. I'm not saying that all of these separations are kosher, but none of them were deliberate, systematic separations intended to harm children as a tool of immigration policy.
So it wasn't a deterrence through cruelty?
No, that was not the intention, that was not the goal. I'm not saying that separations don't harm families, all of them do. But Trump uniquely did it on purpose, and he did it to hurt the kids.
Why will no one actually address our immigration policy in an honest way? Why can't that happen? The last place this happened was, and I'm not saying whether it's the right thing or wrong thing, but at least the Reagan administration had some courage, and they had an amnesty policy. They provided amnesty for people on a path towards citizenship, and they made Congress pass it.
They did. And I think because deterrence has been the bipartisan policy of the United States government for the better part of a generation. Bill Clinton built the first wave of border walls, knowing that people would die trying to come into the country going around them. George W. Bush exponentially increased the size of the Border Patrol in the wake of 9/11 when they created the Department of Homeland Security. Barack Obama deported more people than any president in the history of the United States of America, which is why, like that, Donald Trump could separate these children almost immediately. And Joe Biden promised a departure from that system, a fair, safe, humane, and orderly system. But really what they ended up doing is lean into these aggressive policies in order to continue to scare people away. They think it works. And let me just tell you, deterrence doesn't work. If it worked, people would stop coming to this country, and people still are leaving desperate circumstances from all around the world for a better life in the United States of America. It's time for a new approach.
We have a clip here. What are we about to see?
This is Jonathan White. I mentioned him earlier.
Jonathan White?
Jonathan White is a career official who's still in the government today, and to great risk to his own career, safety, spoke out in this film about whether or not this could happen again. He's a hero in my book.
Jim?
There will always be people who hate immigrants. There will always be people motivated to use cruelty as a tool of immigration policy. But there have to be laws to constrain them. So the other architect of family separation is the United States Congress, which has failed despite numerous displays of moral histrionics that I remember very well from my 9 times testifying before Congress, has not passed that law. So if in a future administration there are political appointees who want to do it, there is really nothing to stop them.
Nothing to stop them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks for everything you're doing. Appreciate you.
Thank you. You can see Jacob on NBC News. You can get the book Separated wherever you buy your books, and you can watch Separated on demand wherever you rent or purchase films. Jacob Soboroff, everybody. We'll be right back.